Everyone thinks they know the gladiator story. The arena. The man in the sand with the sword. But you're not him. You're the one who made him. You are a lanista, a gladiator trainer in imperial Rome. You own men. You feed them, guard them, train them, patch them up, and then you send them out to die in front of 80,000 people. And here's the part nobody tells you: in the eyes of Roman law, you are one of the lowest people in the empire. A man who sells violence for profit, and infamies, the same legal category as a prostitute or an actor. Welcome to the ludus. Let's talk about your morning. Before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of story, subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? It genuinely never gets old seeing where this channel reaches. Now dim the lights and let's ease into tonight's journey. The ludus is not a school in the way you'd imagine. It's a compound, a fortress with a training yard in the middle. Yours sits in the shadow of the colosseum, the ludus magnus, the largest gladiatorial school in Rome. Built by Emperor Domitian, expanded by Trajan. The practice arena inside can seat 3,000 spectators. On any given morning, Romans wander in off the street to watch your men train. Free of charge. A preview of the show, essentially. You've never been asked if this is fine. You wake before dawn. Not because you enjoy mornings, nobody sane enjoys Roman mornings, but because 200 men need to be fed. Drilled and not dead by the time the sun clears the Esquiline hill. 200 men who are, in varying proportions, slaves taken in war, criminals condemned to the arena, and occasionally free volunteers who signed a contract trading their legal rights for money and the strange glamour of the arena. And every one of them, slave or volunteer, swore the same oath. The sacramentum gladiatorium. To endure, to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. Say it out loud once and it sounds like poetry. Say it standing in a yard full of men who mean it, and it sounds like what it is: a signature on your own body. They all eat the same breakfast: barley, beans, dried fruit. You've heard it called sag and the fattening. Your men call themselves hordery, barley men, not affectionately. The diet sounds grim, but it isn't random. Roman physicians understood, in their own imperfect way, that carbohydrates build the kind of body mass that absorbs a sword cut. A layer of fat over muscle. A gladiator who looks lean is a gladiator who bleeds to fast. You need them durable, not decorative. You watch the morning meal from the doorway of the barracks. 200 men in cells barely large enough to turn around in. No privacy, no quiet. Somebody's always coughing, somebody's always praying, and one man in the far cell is already trying to sharpen something he's not supposed to have. That's Marcus. He does this every third week. You confiscate it and note it down. In your line of work, you keep very detailed notes. And here's why you really count the blades. Every lanista in Rome knows the same story, and none of them say it out loud. Capua, 73 years before the birth of the empire you now live in. A gladiator school much like yours, owned by a lanista named Gladiators. One night about 70 of his men grabbed kitchen knives and cooking spits, the only weapons they could reach, and cut their way out through the guards. Their ringleader was a Thracian. His name was Spartacus. It took Rome 2 years and an army to put that fire out. So when you take a sharpened spoon away from Marcus and write it in your ledger, you're not being petty. You're being a man who has read his history. By the time the sun is up, the yard is full and the noise is extraordinary. Wood hitting wood, men grunting, feet on sand. And underneath it all, the low, constant voice of your doct, arrest the specialist trainers, each assigned to a fighting style. Here's what most people get wrong about gladiator training. You are not teaching men to fight. Any brute can fight. You are teaching men to perform. A gladiator who kills his opponent in the first 30 seconds is a gladiator who ruins the afternoon. The crowd paid. The sponsor paid you. The senator in the good seats wants theater, not efficiency. So you teach the punctim the precise thrust, shallow enough to wound, not kill. You teach the CISM the overhead chop, dramatic, crowd-pleasing, controlled. You teach them exactly how deep a cut needs to be to make a man fall without actually ending him. Roman trainers knew precisely where the lines at between a wound and a killing blow. Your men learn to stay on the safe side of that line until the crowd decides otherwise. None of them start there. A numenatiro, a raw recruit, doesn't touch another human being for weeks. He starts at the palace. A wooden post planted in the sand, about the height of a man. He hits it. Thrust, chop, recover, again. Thousands of times. With a wooden sword weighted double the real thing. Until his shoulders scream and the motion lives in his arms without his brain. Only when the post has taught him does he earn a living partner. Survive long enough, win enough, and you stop being a tiro and become a veteran as a proven man, and your price on your master's ledger goes up accordingly. You walk the yard slowly, watching. You already know who is ready. You've known for weeks. Now, the thing the crowd truly comes for is not swordsmanship. It's the matchup. Because your men are not interchangeable. Each one is trained as a specific type, with specific weapons, specific weaknesses, and the whole art of the arena is pairing them so the weaknesses collide in an interesting way. Take the THRAX. Small square shield, a short curved blade called a sika, meant to hook around an enemy's guard. He's mobile, but that little shield leaves his legs exposed. Against him you might set a murmillo, a heavy man behind it, all rectangular shield, a straight gladius, a helmet crested like a fish. The murmillo is a wall. The THRX is a knife looking for a gap in the wall. That contrast is the entire point. Then there's the crowd favorite, the retiarius. The net man. No helmet, almost no armor, a weighted net in one hand and a three-pronged trident in the other. He fights half naked and he is, socially, the lowest of all your gladiators, a man who fights like a fisherman. And against him you send the sacramentum, the pursuer, whose smooth rounded helmet was designed for exactly one purpose: to give that net nothing to catch on. Net versus blade. Speed versus armor. You are not matching to fighters. You are writing a story with a beginning, a middle, and one man left standing. And when the day comes, they don't fight and watch. There's a referee in the sand with them, the summa rudis, a former gladiator who knows every rule. He can pause about. He can separate to men. He can overrule the mob if a fighter breaks the code. Even Roman Bloodstorped had a rulebook, and a man whose job was to enforce it. The morning drill runs 3 hours. The idea is simple: if you train harder than you fight, the fight feels almost manageable. Some mornings a man breaks not his body, his nerve. You've seen it before. A fighter who simply stops, sits down in the sand and won't get up. What do? You give him a day. Not out of kindness, you paid for him, or signed a contract with him, and broken men don't recoup investments. You give him a day because it's cheaper than replacing him. This is the part of the job they don't put in the poems. By mid-morning, you're not in the yard anymore. You're in a small room that passes for an office, looking at a wax tablet covered in numbers. Because the ludus is, first and foremost, a business. And it is a brutally expensive one. 200 men eat every single day, whether they ever set foot in the arena or not. Your doctors expect to be paid. Your guards expect to be paid. The physician, the cook, the armorer, the man who repairs the wooden swords, all of it comes out before a single sestertius comes in. A gladiator school is a machine that devours money for months and only pays you back on the afternoon of a show. You don't run the games. You don't decide who fights whom. You lease your men to whoever is paying for the games: a senator, a magistrate trying to win votes, occasionally the emperor himself. The pricing is based on your fighter's rank and reputation. A primus palus, the highest rank gladiator in the school, costs significantly more. A raw recruit barely covers costs. Here's the part that surprises people if you're gladiatored eyes in the arena. The sponsor who hired him pays you a penalty fee as much as 50 times the rental price. Win or lose, you make money on every match. Death is expensive for the sponsor, which means the sponsor wants your men to survive, at least until the contract ends. Which means most fights are not to the death. Somewhere around 1 in 5 ends with a fatality. The rest end with one man on the ground, arm raised, asking the crowd. And the crowd usually says let him live. Romans were bloodthirsty, yes. But they also loved a good fighter too much to waste him. Now the social paradox of your life. You are, legally, an infames. This is a Roman legal category for people considered dishonorable by profession. Prostitutes, actors, and you. You cannot hold public office. You cannot testify as a witness in court with full credibility. You sit in the bad seats at the theater. And yet, the man who owns this ludus, the wealthy Roman investor who bankrolls everything, he is perfectly respectable. An equestrian, a businessman, probably at dinner with a senator tonight. You run the operation. He takes the profit. He takes the reputation. You are the one who smells like the yard. This arrangement does not escape you. The infirmary is the part of the ludus nobody writes ballads about. Your medical staff, a mix of slaves trained in basic surgery and, if you're fortunate, a Greek physician, spend their afternoons patching up the previous training session. Cuts, bruises, the occasional broken finger from gripping a weighted sodron. Roman medicine here is, charitably, early. Wounds are cleaned with vinegar, sometimes wine. Dislocations are set by whoever is strongest and most confident. Infections are addressed primarily through prayer. And yet your men get better care than almost anyone of their status in Rome. That isn't sentiment. A healed gladiator is an asset. A dead one is a write-off. The same cold arithmetic that feeds them barley also keeps a physician on the payroll, because the greatest doctor of the ancient world, a Greek named Galen, learned his trade doing exactly this job, stitching gladiators back together in a school not unlike yours. Your best fighter, the Thracian you're sending out Thursday, has a hairline crack in a rib from last week's sparring. The physician says he'll manage. You choose to believe this. You do not have the option of postponing the games. The sponsor has announced the date. The posters are up around the city. People have planned their week around Thursday. This is the weight of your job that nobody who writes about gladiators ever quite captures. You are responsible for the outcome without controlling it. You train, you prepare, you pair fighters strategically, you make sure a heavy armored murmillo doesn't go up against another heavy armored murmillo, because that's boring, and boring is bad for everyone. But once they walk through that tunnel into the light, you're in the stands, watching. Same as the crowd. Except you're the only one doing the math in your head. You find the Thracian after the evening meal. He's sitting alone in the yard, which is allowed at this hour. His name is something unpronounceable, you long ago shortened to THRS. He's been in your school 14 months. He is, objectively, the best fighter you've trained in a decade. You tell him Thursday, he nods. Doesn't speak for a moment. Then he asks about his contract. He's a volunteer and octor at us, which means he signed away his legal rights in exchange for money and housing and the strange status the arena gives a man. His contract has 18 months left. He wants to know if he wins Thursday, and the next fight and the one after, how many more fights until he gets the rudies. The wooden sword. The one handed to a gladiator on the day he's granted his freedom, the same humble shape of wood he first learned to kill with, given back to him at the end to say you're done, you survived, you're a free man. Every fighter in your yard is chasing that one piece of carved wood. You tell him honestly it depends on the sponsor. It depends on the crowd. It depends on the emperor's mood on a given afternoon. He nods again. You walk back inside. This conversation happens more than people think. And it ends the same way every time he goes in. You watch. The crowd decides. Night in the ludus is quieter than you'd expect. Men sleep. Some pray. A few write letters or have letters written for them, if they're not literate, to families who may or may not know where they are. Successful gladiators were famous. Their faces on lamps, on cups, scratched into walls by admirers. Women left notes at the gates of ludi for men they'd never met. The paradox of Rome, the man whose society called infames was the one filling the colosseum. A slave could become the most recognizable face in the city and still, legally, be worth nothing. Use it with your accounts in the lamplight. Tomorrow is the same as today: dawn, barley, wooden swords, numbers on a wax tablet. Thursday is the arena. After that, another contract, another fight, another Thursday. You have never personally fought in the arena. You trained, years ago, rose through the ranks of a smaller school, learned the business end of it. Some lanista were former champions. You were a competent fighter who realized early that the men running the schools outlived the men in the sand. By quite a lot. You wouldn't last a week in this job. Not because of the danger you're not the one going into the arena, but because of the weight of the calculation. Every day who is ready, who is not, who goes Thursday, who needs one more month. Every day feeding men you may have to watch dog. Every day running a multi-millionaires I operation while legally ranked below an actor. And yet, the ludus worked. For nearly 500 years, the gladiatorial schools of Rome produced the most technically skilled fighters the ancient world had ever seen. Men who weren't just brutal, they were trained, specialists, artists of combat. Some of them earned their freedom and opened their own schools. Some became legends whose names survived on cups and mosaics 2,000 years later. And one of them once walked out of a school like this one with a kitchen knife and nearly brought down the Republic. The lanista made all of it possible. The man Roman society pretended to look down on while lining up to watch what he'd built. That's the job. And if you think you could handle it, I promise you'd be in the stands by noon on Thursday. Subscribe if you want to do this again next week. I'll see you in the next one.